Well, the latest batch of preseason positional rankings are out, courtesy of ESPN. And where Lamar Jackson falls inside the top 10, it garnered plenty of reaction.
Yeah, Sarah, there was that. And also a hilarious response from Rashod Bateman interacting with a playful Twitter troll online. Not to mention another huge compliment handed out to rookie Zay Flowers.
I'm Sarah Ellison with Bobby Trossett. It is Tuesday, July 18th. And this is your morning Ravens update from inside the vault.
So now that the 2023 franchise tag deadline has come and gone, we're going to take a look at the drama-filled day that Monday was for the running back market, including some Twitter activity from J.K. Dobbins.
Plus, former Raven and current free agent Yannick Ngakoue. He has a message for the league as he remains unsigned. And also DeSean Jackson, he says not so fast.
Yeah, we have all that and more coming up. Thanks for waking up with the Morning Vault, where you get the most important Ravens news and our opinions in about 30 minutes. Okay, partner, off the top here, we're going to begin with the latest batch, as we mentioned, of positional rankings entering the 2023 season. Again, this is essentially conducted by Jeremy Fowler of ESPN, where he went ahead and surveyed league executives, coaches, scouts, and players. And this time, he's ranking the top quarterbacks heading into the season. So you know this is getting a ton of run right now as we get ready for training camp. And some of it probably deservingly so, because I think a lot of it can be argued. The top 10 QB rankings are as follows. Again, this is according to the folks that Jeremy spoke to throughout the league. 1, Patrick Mahomes. 2, Joe Burrow. 3, Josh Allen. 4, Aaron Rodgers. 5, Justin Herbert. 6, Jalen Hurts. 7, Lamar Jackson. 8, Trevor Lawrence. 9, Dak Prescott. And 10, Matthew Stafford. Right off the bat, I know we both believe that Lamar deserves to be in the top 5. I think he's right at that 5 mark in front of the likes of Justin Herbert and Jalen Hurts. I'm okay with the top 4, but I think Lamar deserves to be right at 5. For whatever reason, there's this obsession about Justin Herbert, who's yet to play in a playoff game. And again, this is never, I hate that. What I hate about ranking, Sarah, is when you start to argue it. I think some folks are quick to think that, you know, you're incredibly critical of a certain player. And in this case, it's Justin Herbert. That's really not the case whatsoever. I think he's a freak. He can be really, really special. Like, this guy does it all. He's mobile. He's got a rocket of an arm. He's accurate as heck. Right. And he's just, quite frankly, he's special. But his resume, I don't know what it is about his resume that for whatever reason lofts him above Lamar in a lot of these rankings and a lot of these national conversations. So no disrespect whatsoever to Jalen Hurts. He's coming off the year of his life. Thanks to Howie Roseman and the Philadelphia front office, they certainly getting that deal across the finish line. Jalen's contract extension helped kickstart or reinitiate conversations between Lamar and the Ravens front office. So that had a massive trickle-down effect earlier this offseason. And Jalen can be really special for Philadelphia as well. But Lamar's been doing it for longer than both of those guys. He has a unanimous MVP under his belt. And I think what has become a theme of the last few episodes, because he's been unavailable down the stretch, back-to-back seasons, he's being overlooked in lists like these. Where do you stand?
Yeah, well, I first of all don't think this is a terrible ranking for Lamar Jackson. I think, you could argue it up a few spots for sure, and maybe some people outside of Baltimore would argue him down a few spots. I think after 2 years in a row where you're coming off injuries where you didn't get to finish the season, that's just, we had talked about it in a previous vault where Ronnie Stanley has just been forgotten, right? Where he wasn't even in the honorable mentions, let alone not in the top 10. And we both know what he can do, but I think people just forget about it because this is a league where it's like, it's not for long. What have you done for me lately? And so I actually think last year Lamar wasn't in the top 10. So I think the fact that he got back into the top 10, I think shows that these guys are like, holy moly, look at the effect Lamar Jackson has, right? When he is look at who the Ravens are with him and look at who they are without him. Without him, they drop from number 1 in the seed or number one in the AFC to out of the playoffs in 2021. In 22, they go from number 3 in the AFC to barely making the playoffs and then getting knocked out in the first round. So I think they're showing respect for that. And the fact that he hasn't been forgotten, I think is a good thing. But I completely agree with the Justin Herbert affair. Again, I'm not trying to knock him, but it's just hilarious to me how much love they give him when I just don't feel like he's done much. So I think you could easily take Herbert out of 5 and put him at number 8, which if you then just move Jalen Hurts and Lamar up and that puts Lamar at 6, I'd feel more comfortable with that. And then, yeah, I think you could argue with him and Hurts. I mean, they both just got paid essentially the same amount of money. So I think 5 or 6 is fair, but 7, not terrible.
Well, one guy on this list, Sarah, that I feel like could potentially skyrocket this year is Trevor Lawrence. Well, everybody has a chance to skyrocket. Heck, if Lamar and Todd Monken end up, collaborating well, then he could be, a top 3 at this time next year. But to me, especially the fits that he gave the Ravens on the road in Jacksonville last year, Trevor Lawrence, this guy is special. And the Jaguars are going to be a problem. People forget that because he was suspended from that gambling, the gambling suspension last year, Calvin Ridley is a part of this team. They're going to be an issue. And the Ravens have to go back down to Jacksonville again, back-to-back seasons. So I think that's something to look out for. But shifting gears to Rashod Bateman, like we mentioned at the top, he had a nice little funny back and forth with a guy named Pierre on Twitter who tweeted out, and I'll read the caption as well. It is Lamar, OBJ, and Zay are working out in Miami, and Rashod Bateman is at a Beyonce concert, shaking my head. And it's hilarious. He's quote tweeting a different account where there's this dude who I will say he has some similar traits. He has some similar features to Rashod Bateman. Looks to be in a kind of a silky velvet, sweet little summer outfit watching Beyonce. It's not Rashod.
What are the boots on this guy? I'm looking at it now. He's got on like these fur boots that go up almost to his knees, and then these plaid knee length shorts. And he is like skinny but built and tall. And so and then you have to also put in though, remember, if you follow Rashod Bateman on Instagram, he does put up a lot of photos of himself kind of modeling, like he's kind of a fashionista. And so I think that's why
he would wear something like this.
You put it all together.
I could see him wearing something like this. I don't know about the boots, but
not the boots. Yeah. What Rashod would wear, maybe take off the boots, but he'd wear like flare pants, right? Like, or the bell bottom pants is what I'm seeing him in his photos. But I love that Rashod had fun with this by quote retweeting it.
So
and he goes,
did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he goes, LOL, it was lit too. So he went along with the joke, which I love that he did that. But Bateman always has his replies turned off, which probably isn't the worst thing to do, Bobby. You and I say all the time that sometimes we think that NFL players or athletes in general should just turn off Twitter, turn off social media. So maybe it's not the worst thing to do. But in this instance, I wish he had his replies on, because this was awesome that he just like played with it and acted as if that was him.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I know we talked about it in the pre-show. You don't want to like overhype this or, make any conclusions about where Rashod's at or whatever. But it was just nice to see him. Clearly this guy Pierre was joking and Rashod took it in stride. And to me, just because he has been known to, press send here and there quickly, maybe without thinking, it's nice to see him just have a little bit of fun, play into it. And you could see by the interaction that the tweet itself garnered. I mean, it's got over 115,000 views at the time of this taping. So, other people enjoyed it as well. So good on you, Rashod. And, hopefully he's gearing up for training camp. And obviously we're wishing him nothing but the best health-wise. Before we shift gears to the crazy Monday that it was, because it was franchise tag deadline day, and there's going to be plenty to discuss regarding the running back market, which has been a topic of conversation in these last couple episodes. You somehow stumbled upon this hilarious storytelling video of a former Ravens tight end by the name of Dan Brown. He spent a couple seasons with Baltimore in 2015 and 2016. He was, I believe, undrafted out of James Madison. And I will let you set it up because this is pretty hilarious.
I don't even know where this came from. It's a video from TikTok. Our guy Yuri found it. So I saw it from Yuri and he just grabbed this. I can't even see. He's clearly on a podcast, Dan Brown, and he gives this absolutely unreal story from practice one day. So we'll just let Dan Brown take it from here because he's going to explain it best.
His favorite Harbaugh story is probably training camp of my second year. He kicked me out of practice in a special teams drill. So I'm playing the five. You know, the fives are like the headhunters, right? Jerry Rosberg liked to put big fives, big guys who can run at the five because they usually got the wedge and stuff like that. At the time, you had a two-man wedge. So we were practicing. The wedge guys are holding a bag. And he was like, if you're playing the five, he was like, fit it up. Just show me you know what you're doing, and then you're good. Everybody else full speed. So I'm playing the five. I run down there. Just shoulder shrug the bat. Harbaugh loses his mind. Blows the whistle. He's like, you know, he starts cursing me out. He's like, you're the softest player I've ever seen. You're never going to play in this league. You never play another down. He was like, you can't even hit a bag full speed. And I thought he was just kidding, right? He was like, get out of here. He was like, I don't want you in this drill anymore. I thought he was like, okay, let me get a reaction out of him. I literally line up and I get back to go again. He blows the whistle to stop practice, gets in my face and was like, I told you to get the F off the field. You're too soft to play here and you're never going to play again. So leave. Go sit by the water cooler. I literally walked over there with my tail between my legs, sat down by the water cooler, and I was like, Coach, you know, Coach Rosberg told the fives, if you're going to do this, like, do it. Before I could even finish, he said, no, F off, man. And I just immediately, I was like, I'm not going to win this. So I went and sat down. And then I went up to Coach Rosberg. I was like, listen, you need to talk to Coach Harbaugh about this. Like, I need you to have my back. And he did. So he explained it to him. I saw Harbaugh before a team meeting after practice. He pulls me aside. He said, hey, listen, I'm not going to apologize to you because you don't deserve an apology, but I shouldn't have said the F word, and then walked away.
Before I forget, that was from Not For Long Media. I want to make sure we're given the proper credit here. That story, first of all, makes me, it doesn't surprise me. It doesn't surprise me because I have seen Harbaugh get mad and we've all seen coaches get mad. I guess it's nice that he apologized for saying the F word, but I would like to get Harbaugh's side of this, especially if Rosberg went to him and said, hey, I told him not to go full speed. You know, maybe he's not apologizing because maybe he saw other stuff where he thought that Dan Brown was soft. I have no idea. So I want to hear Harbaugh's side of it. But like, yeah, I've definitely seen him fired up before, Harbs. And which is why everybody like when a Marcus Peters gets after Harbaugh and then afterwards Harbaugh's like, it's all good. You know, like it's in the heat of the moment. Yeah, well, because Harbaugh's been in the heat of the moment too and probably said some things. And it's just like, it's a violent sport and emotions are running. And I'm sure that everybody has said things that they're like, whoops. But the thing that's crazy, though, is that it was afterwards that he went up to him and he's like, well, I'm not apologizing, but I shouldn't have said the F word. I mean, it's just crazy. Yeah.
So good. I'm not surprised in the slightest either. I wasn't around the organization as long as you were, but I definitely saw my fair share of small little tirades and man, it's well documented, Harbs is a little bit of a hardo earlier on in his career. And if you haven't figured that out already, that story gives you a small little glimpse, right, of what life was like in the locker room with the drill sergeant, and that's Jack Harbaugh right there, right? That's a little bit of Jack old school Harbaugh in him right there. But that was awesome from Dan Brown. Yeah. If we ever have a chance to sit down with Harbs, which obviously, we're hoping to at some point. We definitely got to find a way to kind of
get that in there.
Like not surprise him, obviously, but at least to say, hey, we'd love to get your perspective on it. So good stuff there from Dan Brown.
All right. Well, shifting gears this is probably, the news of the day. It was more NFL news than Ravens news. That's why we led with the other things here. But obviously, the franchise tag deadline was Monday at 4 p.m. And what was nice about it from a Ravens perspective is that obviously initially the Ravens had franchise tagged Lamar Jackson. And that was, oh my gosh, the last 2 years of the Lamar Jackson negotiation saga was the worst. So the fact that all these other teams with their tagged players, that they were the ones dealing with drama and that it wasn't the Ravens was such a weight lifted off. Only three players that were tagged eventually got a long-term deal. So it was Lamar, Darren Payne, and then Evan Ingram. Okay. So then there were no. Yes. Did I say a name wrong again?
Only because Q dragged you today. I can't put you out on an island like I did the other night. Okay. Jameis Winston, for those who've been following along, was just slightly mispronounced by my partner the other day. Okay. And Kadri, as he always does, because he's so loyal, he's a loyal listener, decided
that dude listens every day. What's up, Q?
He does. And he made sure to let you know about it, which is pretty funny. Got some run on Twitter. But I told myself, there's just sometimes, as I tweeted, there's just some days and we all have our flaws, right? We all have our flaws. And your bread and butter just doesn't happen to be name pronunciation. And that's quite all right. Anybody who remembers listening to the Saleh episode where I screwed up the rookie Oregon tackle's name like 1,500 times, I'm human too. You're human. So anyway, with that said, it is Daron Payne, and let's keep going.
I love how you try to soften it. Everybody has weaknesses. Everybody
does.
Thank you.
I couldn't do it back-to-back episodes because I know Q be lurking. He'd be lurking.
Yeah. Well, it's almost better because I do get comments all day long. Like when you do. And what's funny is when we were scripted, I could like practice them beforehand. I didn't even know that I was going to say his name today. I'm just like looking it up. And so anyway, this is the unscripted version of me, obviously, in trying to pronounce these names. Whatever. There were three other people that did not get a deal before the end of the tag deadline. Saquon Barkley, Josh Jacobs, and Tony Pollard. I'm pretty sure I got those ones. So this obviously creates a stir, okay, in many different markets about the running backs not getting their deals. Okay. So somehow this just continues to grow. And I think what really set people off is this tweet from Matt Miller. Okay. So Matt Miller tweets, been saying it for years. Number one, draft a running back. Number two, play the running back. If he's good, number three, franchise the running back one time. And then go back to number one, draft a running back. So he's essentially saying basically what the market is like with the way that running backs are used these days, it's like never pay him. He's essentially saying never pay him that big deal. So of course, this sets off a ton of running backs responding to him. I won't read everybody's, but probably Derrick Henry maybe came off the most gave the most pushback, or was at least one of the earliest. And Derrick Henry from the Titans says, at this point, just take the running back position out of the game then, what he's saying to Matt Miller. The ones that want to be great and work as hard as they can give their all to an organization just seems like it don't even matter. I'm with every running back that's fighting to get what they deserve. Bobby, obviously, if I were a running back, I too would be fighting for anything that I could get. And so Matt Miller started getting, quote, retweeted by a bunch of people, not just Derrick Henry, a bunch of running backs. And then, people aren't happy with Matt Miller. But my response is Matt Miller didn't make up these rules. Not even GMs or head coaches really have. What it comes down to is this has become a passing league. To me, the biggest thing that have hurt running backs are the rules of protecting quarterbacks and and just making defenses play in different ways with all the rules of pass interference and everything. It's really hard to play defense, especially pass defense. And so when you see people like the Kansas City Chiefs winning a Super Bowl with, I think their running back was either like a 6th or 7th rounder or something crazy like that. Yeah. And it's like, you see what's happening, right? Like running backs are no longer catalysts. They also have shorter shelf lives. There's fewer, I'm not going to say nobody does it, but there's fewer workhorses. We're seeing that. That's why J.K. Dobbins was in part so angry, is that, he just doesn't get enough carries in a game. And so when you're able to use like 2 or 3 running backs in a game and you don't have these cash cows and it's becoming a passing league, then the supply and demand chain is different. It's that now there's plenty of players who can do what teams need from running backs now. So if you have an excess of supply of the type of running backs that you need, then the demand goes down and therefore the value goes down. So I'm not upset that Matt Miller's pointing that out. I'm not upset at Derrick Henry for, fighting and being on the running back side and trying to make more money. But, and I've heard a lot of people say, well, it's rigged because they have a shorter shelf life. It's not fair that they have to go through these rookie contracts, because to Matt Miller's point, that by the end of their, if you're a first rounder, 5th year, but if you're being franchise tagged at the end of your 5th year, because you go through 4 and then you're franchise tagged 1 year, 5 years. So by the end of the 5, if you've already now gotten past your prime years, then people are saying, okay, well then running back shouldn't be on a long rookie contract like that. Okay, but if you change that, then their draft value just goes down. If you think running backs are already being drafted later rounds, don't even really start till 2nd or 3rd round, an occasional guy will make it into the 1st. We saw that with Bijan Robinson recently. And so it's like, but all you're going to do is hurt their draft stock. And so you can play and try to rig the system for them to be better, but more than anything, it's just because it's become a passing league, and there's just too much supply of what you need now. So I don't hate Matt Miller. I don't hate Derrick Henry. It's just the way it's going, and I don't know what running backs can do to change it other than maybe become a more viable option in the passing game from the backfield.
Yeah. And by the way, Matt Miller is an ESPN draft analyst, just in case you out there may not have realized that. When I'm also realizing that somebody's been out in front of this for years is Mel Kiper. The guy said for years, do not draft a running back in the 1st round, and that's been from a strategy standpoint. So for Matt, I'm with you, Sarah. Like, Matt's just talking business here. It's not personal. It's not a, Derrick Henry and Jonathan Taylor was another one who quote tweeted him. By the way, both Derrick and Jonathan's tweets were retweeted by JK, kind of alluded to that earlier on in the open. Jonathan tweeted, 1, if you're good enough, they'll find you. 2, if you work hard enough, you'll succeed. If you succeed, 3, you boost the organization. And then doesn't matter, you're a running back. So essentially trolling Matt Miller a little bit there and trying to kind of emulate the framework of his tweet. Again, right. JK retweeted both of those. We know that JK is entering, the final year of his rookie deal. Ian Rappaport described his mandatory minicamp as a hold-in. So unfortunately, yeah, like we've mentioned, there's not a lot that the running back market, these guys can do other than sit back and watch this thing unfold and obviously play their tails off. But you just don't know if there's reward on the other side. I mean, look at what Bijan Robinson, the guy, the storylines on him coming out of college is that he is going to be more than just a running back. Maybe that's where this is headed. Running backs are going to have to be, like to your point earlier, they're going to have to be involved in the screen game. They're going to have to be in the vertical pass game, and if that's the case, then maybe we're going to see a lot more Debos, if you will, hybrid guys, come out and that can do it all. But it's unfortunate. I can see, obviously you can see their outrage. They're really upset and, deservingly so. But again, Matt Miller, point being here before we move on, this wasn't personal. This was just business.
No, and just one more quick thing on this before we move on. I know we got a few quick hits here. One other post about this that kind of got a run is from Luke Sawhook, and he's a fantasy football content creator. He put up side-by-side images of Saquon Barkley and Justin Tucker. And then what he did is he took the average of NFL running back salaries versus the average of salaries for NFL kickers. And if you take those averages, running backs make less. He has it here at 1.81 million versus kickers at 2.26 million. And then he puts the caption with this showing those side by side. He says, this is a problem. And so, this also, I mean, it's got, as I'm looking at it right now, it's got 6,800 likes and it's been viewed almost 1 million times. I don't see this as a problem either. So number one, it's kind of cherry picking because you usually have 3 running backs on an NFL roster, 53-man roster. Most teams have just 1 kicker. So if you really wanted to do an apples to apples comparison, you should only be comparing the starting running backs to the kickers, because the number 2 and number 3 guy at running back is bringing down that average. Obviously, they're not making as much, nor should they. So that's number 1. Number 2, I still don't see a problem with it because, again, it comes back to supply and demand. As I said, there's too much of a supply of running backs for what teams need these days, whereas like there isn't enough of kickers. And then I just thought there was a lot of irony in this that he used Justin Tucker. I know he's not putting Justin Tucker's salary up, but the irony is that, you know, he's trying to make the point that kickers aren't worth it. But like literally, there's not enough supply of Justin Tuckers in the world, right? Like he's the most accurate kicker in NFL history. He's got a record 66-yarder, 19 game-winning field goals. Like, yeah, he's worth the money that he's getting. And oh, by the way, there's still 13 running backs who are paid more than him. So again, I don't see it as a problem. I do understand the point that running backs are getting hurt more often. They probably see the ball more often. But again, it comes back to supply and demand. And there just aren't enough kickers, and there's too many running backs.
So did you say that he has 19 career game winners? Is that what you said?
Yes.
Okay. He's gearing up for year 12 in the NFL. He's good for 1 game winner, more than 1 game winner per season.
Yeah.
Like,
and that's when like
that's pretty valuable.
Yeah, and that's when and he makes a lot more kicks than that, right? Obviously, kickers are oftentimes score the most points. So obviously he makes more kicks than that, but that is game winners. That's when the game is on the line, 19 of those, and that doesn't even mention all the other points he scored.
Case closed. Let's move forward here because Madden, of course, the EA Sports video game, comes out with its ratings, overall ratings, speed ratings, all these different numbers that go into it. And the players care about it. I got news for you. The players care about this stuff. And one that got some run in Baltimore is the fact that Zay Flowers, rookie wide receiver coming out of Boston College, he has a 77 overall Madden grade, but that's not the big deal. The big deal is that he's got a 93 speed. And that speed rating is higher than the likes of Deebo Samuel and Justin Jefferson. Elite company to be in. And it just makes me think he is garnering so much respect. It's almost like there's this universal respect around the NFL league-wide about this guy. We know that he was number 1 on the Ravens board, and he fell to them. And he hasn't even played a game yet. And there's this like, you talk about an obsession with Justin Herbert. I think there's a small little obsession that's developing for one Zay Flowers.
Yeah, although I don't see Zay Flowers. He's not being ranked among the top 10 of wide receivers. But I think there's some excitement around him for sure. You said that players care a lot about the Madden rankings. I do not. I used to play Madden when I was younger. I no longer have time. So, it's a good thing that you play it and that you can bring that information to the vault here this morning. Moving on, there was just, obviously, as we know, Ravens, I'm sure, are have their tabs on the pass rusher market. I still feel like Justin Houston is a very likely candidate to return. But we all know former Raven pass rusher Yannick Ngakoue. So he is 28 years old. He has, which, man, it seems like he's been in the league forever. So the fact that he's just 28 kind of like took me back for a second. So he's 28, and he's recorded at least 8 sacks in every season that he's been in the NFL. And last year he put up 9.5. So I'm pretty sure that's exactly what Houston put up last year, which is 9.5. So he was asked by Jim Rome, he was on with Jim Rome, why he's still unsigned. And Ngakoue says, I'm not sure. That's a question for not me. It's a question for whoever makes those decisions. The only thing I can control is staying in shape, being in the best shape I've ever been in my whole career, and being a force when I touch the field again. So it is crazy to me. Yannick has been traded a lot. Nobody's really held on to him long term. I do know that he didn't really hit it off in Baltimore. He had complained that he felt like he wasn't used in the right way when he was in Baltimore. In fact, I got the quote here. He says that rotation was kind of ugly for me. Pass rushers need rhythm. So he didn't like that he was, kind of put into a rotation. So I don't know what it is. That is plenty of production, 8 every year. So I don't know if he rubs people the wrong way. I don't know if he's I don't want to project anything onto him. I shouldn't speculate. So I don't know what it is, but he just never seems to find a home. But it just tells you once again that there are still plenty of options that I still think the Ravens will dip into at some point, either before or during training camp.
Yeah, let's just put it this way. He's been on 5 teams and he was drafted in 2016. So it'll be a 6th team this upcoming season, assuming that at some point, he makes it out of free agency. So there's been a lot of smoke surrounding him. Again, you don't want to project anything, but there's been a lot of smoke. And for whatever reason, he's been a nomad throughout his career in the NFL. Couple different Warren Sharp statistics to dive into here. One's Warren Sharp. Another one is courtesy of the Game Day NFL. But this is just a model of consistency, obviously, that the Ravens have been throughout their existence, but specifically over the last 10 years. Warren put together the losing seasons, the amount of losing seasons over the last decade. And at the top, Kansas City and Pittsburgh, none, 0, zilch, nada. Seattle has 1, and Baltimore is in a tie with 2, 4-2, with 2, whatever, with New England and Dallas. So again, Kansas City and Pittsburgh at the tip top of that list, just excellence. Seattle is just 1, and the Ravens just 2 losing seasons over the last decade. On top of that, you have the highest all-time home win percentage during the regular season. They hold the NFL's highest statistic in that category at 68.4%. Packers are just south of them at 66. Vikings 64.2, Cowboys 63.9, Dolphins to round out the top 5, 63.8. Point being, lots goes down in the bank. They're comfortable inside the bank.
Yeah, I think fans for the most part are very grateful to have a team that rarely puts up a dud of a season. Ravens are always in the conversation for the playoffs. You can see, and these losing seasons that they've had, by the way, it's always right on the edge of it. That said, what the Ravens haven't done for quite some time, really since the Super Bowl run, is to win more in the postseason. And it's been almost a decade, so that's definitely where they need to get back up. But you got to be grateful for the model of consistency, as you said, they have. So 2 final quick hits here. We don't need to dig too deep into it, but the Ravens rookies, report to team headquarters Tuesday, that is today, for training camp. So hopefully we're going to get more. Our shows will be more, meat, dig our teeth into stuff that's actually happening at practice. And then finally, DeSean Jackson, he went on Instagram, cleared some things up because everybody was speculating, including us, if one of his posts was about him retiring. And he says, not so fast. He said, they're reaching with my last post. It wasn't a retirement post. I just had to get some stuff off my chest. Y'all will know when the boy retire. So DeSean Jackson has been in the league for 15 years, caught on for a little while with the Ravens. Sounds like he still wants to give it a try in year 16.
Look, DeSean, nobody's reaching. Your caption was, did it my way 15 years strong, never another like it. Like, what? I mean, I guess there's a little bit of speculation there, but I don't. He's funny. He clearly just says what's on his mind, as we learned many times throughout his short stint with the Ravens last year. So that's a good place to stick a pin in it here for Tuesday's Morning Vault edition. As always, you can support us through Patreon. And before I give you the information on that, we wanted to shout out two of our returning patrons who are supporting both of us and here on the channel, also on our audio only platforms as well. So shout out to Joe Bonzel and Jason Barrett. We appreciate you both, guys. Thanks for believing in what we're building. And if you're interested in doing the same, you can check out what we're offering on Patreon by visiting patreon.com/Ravens Vault podcast. All right, partner, for my co-host, Sarah Ellison, who I'm finally going to meet in person next week. Be on the lookout for some announcements in terms of live streaming and stuff to kick off training camp. I'm Bobby Trossett signing off from this Tuesday morning edition here inside the Vault, and you will next hear from us on Wednesday morning.